you like to just sort of give it a start and then I'll take over?
Yeah, good morning, friends. We have today the pleasure of having Dr. Swati Arora with us, and she's HOD, Department of Anesthesiology, ESIC Hospital, and she's very supportive as far as our products is concerned. Polymed, she's supporting very much our autofusion, our Polysite, as well as Polycath Safety, जो हमारा safety का version है. But I would like to request Dr. Arjit to introduce her.
Yeah.
Over to Dr. Arjit.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in. My name is Dr. Arijit. I lead the medical affairs for Polymedicure. Today, we are happy to have Dr. Swati Arora amongst us, who is the head of Department of Anesthesiology, ESIC Model Hospital, Jaipur. And she's also the officer in charge and advisor to the Central Sterile Services Department, OT and Infection Control Committee, there in the ESIC Model Hospital. From an experience point of view, she has worked in SMS Medical College between 2007 and 11, and thereafter at Fortis Hospital from 2011 to 13. And after that, EHCC Hospital from 2013 to 16, after which she has joined as the head of department of ESIC Hospital since 2016 and continuing. Her special interest is in pediatric anesthesia and analgesia, and she has achieved a lot during her career. She has been invited as a guest speaker in national and international conferences and chairpersons in numerous occasions. And she has organized herself multiple conferences and seminars as an organizing secretary. She has chaired over different webinars on different aspects of critical care and latest techniques in anesthesiology. She has conducted multiple public awareness programs, both in-house as well as in outreach settings. And on the social work, from the philanthropy side, she has associated as a core committee member in various NGOs. So we welcome you, ma'am, to today's webinar. Let me set the context today. So Dr. Arora is going to talk about infection prevention and control in OT. And we all know that patient safety is basically the avoidance of unintended or unexpected harm to patients during the delivery of healthcare services. It equally applies to, when we're talking about a patient undergoing surgery. And because the OT theater complex is the heart of any institute which is providing surgical services. And that's why to have a very well developed infection control policy within the premises of the OT complex is also paramount to delivering patient safety. So with that, and there are different elements to that. I mean, it could be patient, the safety plan or the structural parts of it, which is basically the environmental part, and then the infection control per se, which includes the biomedical waste disposal as well as sterilization practices, etc. So all of that, I think we'll look forward to hearing more about all these aspects, ma'am. So over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Arijit, for the brief and introduction. Lovely to hear from you. I'm starting my presentation by sharing my screen.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Can you say? Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. This can be enlarged as well.
Yeah.
It's quite visible.
Okay. Yeah, it's truly a pleasure to speak in front of such a large audience. Can you see my slideshow?
Yes, ma'am. We can.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Just start. Okay. So to begin with, we'll like to talk about surgical site infections. Um, as you all know that it's the biggest reason to increase the stay of the patients in the hospital and to increase the morbidity. According to the status of CDC, there are more than 1,57,500 surgical site infections associated in 2011 onwards. So it's the third most common nosocomial infection. And as far as nosocomial infection is concerned, when we come to surgical site patients, it amounts to 14 to 16% number of cases. So the magnitude of the problem is large, and about 2.6% of all surgeries, which amount to 1.5 million cases annually, are reported to suffer from surgical site infection, which increases the stay of the patient and definitely amounts to a major cost to the institute as well as the patient. Any surgical site infection presents with signs and symptoms, as we all know. The symptoms comprise of fever, throbbing pain, pus and watery discharge. And the signs which we can see are redness, excessive swelling in the wound, tenderness in the wound area. Symptoms include, like as I have discussed earlier, they show redness and pain around. And when we get the patient investigated, definitely there is increased WBC count. There are many risk factors which are associated with surgical site infection, which are like age, extremes of ages like geriatric or the pediatric patients are more prone to all these infections. Nutritional status is very much important, because if the patient is having low nutritional status, or any child is suffering from PM, protein allergy malnutrition, then definitely the surgical site infection, chances of surgical site infection, they increase enormously. Any diabetic patient, because they have decreased peripheral perfusion of organs, so definitely they are more prone. Then patients who are having nicotine use, like who smoke, and obese patients, because of decreased peripheral circulation, they have more incidences of surgical site infection. Any coexistent infection, if it is already pertaining, so it can spread to multiple organs. Colonization, altered immune response can be there. Long preoperative stay, if we make the patient stay in the wards preoperatively for a longer duration, they are more prone to get infection from other patients. And there could be a like poor surgical technique, which comprises of like not maintaining asepsis, not painting and draping the patients nicely, not preparing the patient nicely. The criteria for defining surgical site infection can be different. It could be like according to the depth of the wound. If it involves only the skin and the subcutaneous tissues, then it is comprised as superficial. If it involves the deepest soft tissue, that is called as deep incisional surgical site infection. And if it involves the organ space, then it is known as organ space surgical site infection. Another criteria of defining is according to the bacterial contamination, whether the wound is clean, like any operative incisional wound that follows non-penetrating or blunt trauma is known as clean wound. If it is clean and contaminated, in this we have uninfected wounds in which no inflammation is encountered, but the respiratory, GI, genital, or any other urinary tract has been entered, but they are not contaminated. Sorry, they are not infected. Now, in contaminated wound, open traumatic wounds and surgical wounds are involved, in which major breach in sterile technique has been done, and that shows an evidence of inflammation. And fourth comes the infected wound, which comprise of old traumatic wounds containing dead tissue and wounds with evidence of a clinical infection. How can we prevent SSIs? There are three regimes. One is preoperative, one is intraoperative, one is postoperative. So we can prevent surgical site infection, or we can reduce the incidence of surgical site infection by working in all the three areas, whether it is preoperative, intraoperative, or postoperative. All the three areas have to be covered for the complete prevention. Catch decrease surgical site infection, we say, because like as I told you, preoperatively, you have to go through all the things like whether the patient's nutritional status is adequate to go for the surgery, whether the age is adequate, and you have to build the patient's vital status according to the procedure, whether the patient is anemic, whether we have optimized the patient is, if the patient is diabetic, whether we have optimized the patient nicely. So proper optimization of the patient for the surgery, whichever surgery patient has been posted for, the proper optimization is a must. In intraoperative management, we have many steps. Like we begin with, we'll discuss about hand wash technique. Hand wash technique is designed to comprise of 7 steps, and the 8th step is removal of all the jewelry. So each and every step is crucial. So every step of hand wash technique should be followed, and it definitely pays. If we are following the hand wash technique genuinely and we are doing hand wash for complete 5 minutes, then definitely you are going to have better results for the patient than when you are not following those steps. Next comes the proper sterile draping and painting of the patient. So the surgical site which is to be operated should be painted nicely under sterile precautions. So like it should be painted nicely, it should be draped nicely, and no drape should touch the floor, because anything below the waistline is considered to be non-sterile. So anything hanging to the floor, any drape hanging to the floor is considered as non-sterile. Anything above the waistline is considered as sterile in OT. Now, the minimal footfall of people in OT also has a major role in controlling the surgical site infection. The doors of the OT should not be kept open. Either they should be motorized and self-closing doors with sensors working. And if you have manually controlled doors, then don't allow anyone to enter and exit the OT very frequently. Only the people who are concerned with the procedure to be performed in OT should remain inside the OT. And once they have entered, they should not leave the OT without completion of the procedure. So, and like proper wearing of gowns and gloves, and wearing the gloves with the sterile practices. So these all also pay a lot. In post-operative management, to say goodbye to infections, just wash your hands as many times as you approach the patient. Before reaching the patient, wash your hands. After leaving the patient, wash your hands. If you do these 2 steps wisely, then definitely the incidences of surgical site infection are reduced to minimum. And you should switch to eternal nutrition as early as possible, because natural causes of nutrition are definitely going to help a lot. If you are sticking to intravenous or parenteral nutrition, then definitely exposure for or chances of infection are higher. And if the patient is diabetic, then there should be a tight glucose control post-operatively, and surveillance programs should run regularly, so that if there is any breach in the post-operative management of SSIs, then it could be diagnosed early and corrected early. Physical examination of the wound on daily basis is a must, because if you ignore dressings, if you ignore watching the patient in your post-operative rounds, then definitely you're going to miss the early signs and symptoms of the SSIs. And you should change the dressings as frequently as required. So surgical site infection is something that when we all are together in this, we can stop the germs from spreading, because it's just a teamwork. It's just a teamwork, and like no one alone can fight this journey. We have to all do our roles. Everyone is having their individual roles, but each and every one's role is very important in this whole episode. If anyone does the breach in their role, then definitely the patient is the sufferer, and it amounts to increase in morbidity of the patient. Like I always say, we don't need to work on the level of mortality. It's been ages. Now what we want to work is on morbidity. We want to decrease the morbidity. Like we want to decrease the number of days of stay of the patient in the hospital. We want to mobilize the patient as early as possible. We want to decrease the we want to increase the recovery rate of the patient, so that if the patient is coming for any damn surgery in OT, they are able to wean off from this and from whole of the procedure as early as possible, as early as embolization they can go for. So that is all what is required. And thank you so much for being a brilliant audience. And I hope I was able to compile everything in brief. And if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Indeed, surgical site infections and how the management of that in preoperative as well as intraoperative and postoperative phase are paramount. And there should be clarity, communication should be unambiguous, because there are so many people who are working and coordinating during the procedures, the technicians, the um, surgical nurses, the surgeons themselves, the other surgeons who are assisting the surgery, the anesthesiologist, and within the nurses, the scrub nurse and the sterile nurse, so many people are coordinating together to get the best outcomes for the patient. So, really important that everyone understands their individual responsibilities and does it together as a teamwork. Ma'am, I would like to start with asking a question, and this is for everyone. Please type in your questions in the Q&A section. There is a tab out there, so please type in your section so that we can bring it to the attention of Dr. Arora. So I'd like to give it a start while people plug in their questions, ma'am. So with regards to getting exposed to infections, say for example, the healthcare professionals themselves. So is there a policy which mandates everyone to have a vaccination done, immunization done towards?
Yeah, definitely. We have vaccination policies, and we have all the prophylaxis for needle stick injuries also in our department. And we ask our staff to get regularly vaccinated for swine flu vaccines and all the regular vaccines which we are having in the department. And if any staff goes for needle stick injury, has needle stick injury, then definitely whole prophylaxis is followed by Department of Microbiology. We fill in a form and refer the case to the microbiology department. They get the blood investigations done, and definitely all of that is followed. And in this COVID scenario, since the staff, healthcare workers are always at an edge, so definitely we are having all those PPEs, like we are using N95 masks, and we are having face shields and double gloves everyone is wearing. And whenever they go close to the patient for any procedure, they are asked to wear PPE kits, the whole kit they are wearing with all those shoe covers and everything. So we are on toes to keep our staff safe and sound, because if they are safe, we all are safe, and our patients are safe, and we can work for a longer time. We cannot sacrifice each and every staff's life. So the health of the staff is of primary importance. If they are healthy, they can keep others healthy. They can take care of the patients, which is our target goal. So definitely we are liberally using PPEs in our department, and we have all the like regimes for vaccination and all.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. With regards to, again, the COVID scenario, on the hospital side, on the wards, we see that there are separate roosters which are getting developed, in which, because of shortage of staff, many of them catching COVID while serving patients. So we see that there are some currently the duty hours of nurses can go as high as 12 hours at a stretch in certain occasions.
Very true. Very.
So, is there a contingency plan also in the theaters that that you're looking at some of these plans?
Right. We have like segregated manpower in 6 OTs, 6 exclusive OTs. So we are utilizing our manpower in 6 OTs. So that, and primarily we are having only 2 functional at a time in those 6. So at a time, only the staff of those two OTs is exposed on one day,
Okay.
so that the remaining staff is not exposed at all. And if God forbid any episode happens of any breach in the safety or any breach in PPEs, then at least that much amount of staff which is working in two OTs has to remain in isolation, or they have to be evaluated whether they have to go on quarantine or anything. So considering all these things, we have divided the whole staff in 6 parts, 6 lot.
Okay.
So
Okay.
at a time, only two groups are working, and the rest 4 are on a standby mode.
Okay. Okay.
So that we are using, so that the whole of the staff is not sacrificed and like goes for any infection at the single exposure.
All right, ma'am. Would you also like to, because while I was reading about some of these aerosol generating procedures,
Right,
especially
right,
in the
right.
theaters, and the risk it carries
Yeah.
to the healthcare professionals. So, uh, what are the strategies going forward are going to be best practices across
Actually,
theater companies?
the major concern is in general anesthesia. We are going for regional anesthesia. Then we avoid oxygenation of the patient if the saturation is not falling below 93%. If the saturation is falling below 93%, then definitely we need to oxygenate the patient with venti mask. And in that case, we put a sterile drape on the face of the patient. And we ask the staff to remain a bit away, at least 6 feet away from the patient, because the patient is on spontaneous respiration. If we are giving general anesthesia to the patient, then what we used to do earlier was pre-oxygenation and IPPV, intermittent
Mhm.
positive pressure ventilation, but those things are not being done in this COVID case scenario. In today's scene, what we are doing is rapid sequence induction. We rapidly induce the patient. We rapidly induce and paralyze the patient, intubate the patient with a clamped endotracheal tube. And as soon as we connect it with the circuit, then only we remove the clamp, so that there's no outburst of gases from the lungs, and sudden blast of gases is not there on the anesthetist end. And then we are using HME filters. 3 filters are being used in
Okay.
one case. 2 are being installed at the ventilator end and 1 at the patient end. So that is the prophylactic regime which we are following in this COVID case scenario.
All right, ma'am. Going forward, because COVID has, I think maybe the one thing which has taught everyone about hand hygiene, compliance
Actually,
towards.
actually, when I joined my department, I was wondering, I always used to say my staff that keep washing your hands with either soap and water or with sterilium. The smell of sterilium or the soap should not run away from your hands. If you're not able to smell the fragrance of soap and sterilium, then just it is a reminder that it is to be done again. And now this corona and COVID has like taught them it. I was wondering कि कब ये सीखेंगे, but now COVID has taught them. Now they keep on washing their hands without asking.
And
Earlier
then
I used
going,
to ask them.
yeah,
They don't need
going
to ask.
forward, do you see, some sort of positive impact on the, the um, microbiology?
What I feel,
Yeah.
so many years of learning in anesthesia, like 16 years it has been. I'm working in Department of Anesthesia. So one thing I have learned, that every episode of any pandemic or epidemic is a big like step which makes us, which forces us to learn something and to remember them throughout our lives. But COVID has it has put the biggest impact on everyone. And earlier microbiologists used to take care of all these biomedical waste and all these. He used to bang his head with my staff. Now my staff is automatically doing all those regimes and all those things by their own without asking much, because they themselves are so very scared. And now they realize the importance, rather, that how important these all things are, which
Right.
earlier we used to ask for, but people were rigid and like they didn't used to even follow the treatment procedures. They used to even follow the tree in absence. They used to like avoid a few steps. Now my staff is like on toes all the time. They're following each and every regime, whatever guidelines we have made.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, across we see this heightened awareness, and this is only going to do good. I mean, in the context of infection control also. I mean, so
Really.
in the perioperative period, if we can talk about a pre-COVID and a post-COVID sort of comparison,
Definitely.
what
The scene has
has
changed
changed?
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of changes there. The surgeons are also on toes. They are making the patient prepared for the surgery. They are trying to optimize their patients. They are investing time on the patient. They are interested in reading our pre-anesthesia card, which we used to fill, but no one used to read. But now they are reading our cards. They're reading the pre-operative advice, what all advice we have given for optimization, because they also need early recovery and early discharge of the patient. Because if the patient is going to remain in the wards for many days post-operatively, then definitely it's going to be a threat to all the staff and all the remaining patients remaining in staying in the ward. So everyone is on toes and they're working hard, really hard. Definitely COVID has taught us a lot to work hard.
Ma'am, any specific protocol you would have for taking a patient for surgery,
Yeah,
a positive case of
yeah.
COVID?
Actually, if the patient is diagnosed to be COVID positive, then we have designated one separate OT for it. And we have a separate dirty corridor for taking off the laundry, and all the scrub which has been used, all the linen which has been used for that surgical procedure are dipped in sodium hypochlorite solution for half an hour. And after that, we send those stuff to the laundry and they are washed separately in a different washing machine. And all the instruments which are being used, I have set up a different set of like CSSD for COVID positive patients. So all these instruments which are used in COVID positive patients are sent to a separate CSSD. They are washed with ultrasonic, and then they are dried and heated, and then they are autoclaved in a separate autoclave. So we are having a separate set of stuff so that our COVID negative patients don't like get contaminated anyhow.
Even the patient transfers from their
Yeah, we have a separate corridor. We have a
separate corridor, dedicated corridor.
We have a dedicated separate corridor for transfer of the patients. In and out is through a different separate corridor.
All right, ma'am. Great talking to you, ma'am, and you know the coverage of the surgical site infection part and what is important for everyone to know. I think the audience here has learned a lot. I do not see any questions coming. I think it was pretty much clear what you had said, and everyone has taken note of that. So from our side, we look forward to having you again, ma'am, for maybe another session. But thank you so very much for taking out time and being amongst us.
Thank you so much. I request everyone to stay safe and sound. Just take a very good care of yourself, and we together can beat Corona or any damn thing.
Yeah.
If you all are together.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ranjit. Thank you.
Thank you.